Welcome, my friends. This is your host, Mari Lanzarotti, the Freedom Architect. Welcome to the Self-Doubt Solution. Today, I have the honor and the plum-pleasing pleasure of welcoming my friend, William Griffin. William is a very special man. He is what you would consider in the traditional sense, a coach, but more so, he's a wizard. He really gets people's magic out and helps them express that in a form that is clear, concise, and powerful. He did that for me. We had a conversation which really changed things up for me, which is why I wanted to have him here today. And he has a very interesting story. When he was in school, he got kicked out. They told him, "You're not smart enough," which I don't understand, but I'm sure he's going to tell us more about that. He's calling in from Bali, and he's a conscious leader. He's someone that I call who leads with his heart wide open. And I'm super excited. William, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate you deeply. Thank you so much for the honor of having me here. Absolutely. I'm actually in Bali right now. It's sunset. The sun's setting. It's rather warm. So there's a fan here. So hopefully this fan isn't too annoying for the listeners.
Just the fact that you are in Bali, I think it's well worth listening to.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, William. So I'd like to, get cut right to the chase on the show and ask you the question: what is it that you specifically do? How can you help people that are tuning into the podcast right now?
How can I help people? Well, when people ask me what do, I like to say I'm a philosopher, because I think that that describes who I consider myself to be, more than maybe the traditional way of describing myself. But if we're being a little bit more traditional, I would say that there's two roles that I do in terms of work. The first is a life coach, unniched life coach. So I can unpack that a little bit if you'd like. And I also mentor other coaches, particularly around growing their practices. Usually the type of people that I work with are coaches who are, well, they're at all different stages, but relatively new, maybe under six figures, should we say. And so they could have been doing it for a few years. And really a lot of that, I mean, the way I look at and all of my one-on-one life coaching clients are entrepreneurs. So I only ever work with entrepreneurs, and really, no matter which camp I'm in, whether it's the life coaching or the mentoring, 80% of entrepreneurship is mindset. The rest is strategy. So really a lot of the work that I do is mindset. And you know what? I really think that if I were to summarize the work that I do with my clients is I just shine a mirror up to their greatness. So I have quite an easy job, I'd say, because I work with amazing people.
I love that. And I can obviously relate to that because I'm a coach myself, and we've exchanged some magic together, and that really made a difference for me. And like full transparency, I remember you and we connected. When was this? Like a year ago? A little bit less than a year ago?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and you really helped me distill what it is that I do for other people and why that is so important. And it came down to money. It's like mindset is amazing, like you said. And then, however, at the end of the day, an entrepreneur, he doesn't go out and say, okay, if only I had more mindset in the bank account. No, they need more money. That's the result that they all want. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. All this leads to helping them make more money. And so that really changed things up for me, which is why I really wanted you today on the show, because I think you can share a lot of wisdom, practical wisdom, really, to help people move forward. And I want to ask you, because you have an interesting story. I read that on your website, that for you, this journey kicked off when, you were kicked out of school. What was that about?
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Well, do you know what it is? I remember that conversation. It was lovely. And I had a few conversations in that spree of chats, and you really stood out. So it's all testament to you and how much I see you, and it's been really beautiful to follow you online actually, since then, and just seeing all the amazing things you're doing, like your TEDx speech, etc. So yeah, I'm really happy that we're connected again. Wow. Well, before I get into that, the first thing I'd say is it's really interesting actually, because this conversation was in the back of my mind for the past week or so, and I'm just thinking to myself, it's funny because the last thing I want to do is come on here and pretend that I have everything sussed, because I certainly don't, especially when it comes to mindset. I think at every single last turn, up level, new project, whatever it might be, there's another level of mindset that comes to spank me in the arse, shall we say. And I've just recently gone through one as well. So I think mindset is, especially in entrepreneurship, is a never-ending, beautiful journey of expansion. So I just want to illustrate with that. I'm riddled with flaws for sure. But to answer your question, which was when I was kicked out of school, how did that work? But that was a huge part of my journey, actually. Yeah. So when I was 16 years old, I was kicked out of the boarding school that I'd been at since the age of 8, and it was a huge, it was a real shake 'em up. It was my home. Living in that school had been my home since I was 9 years old. Excuse me. And then I was kicked out about 2 weeks' notice before school was meant to start. I moved back home with my mother, who went for, I guess she was going for a bit of a mental breakdown. It wasn't the best environment for a lost teenager to be in. And then I went to another school and was kicked out of there, and and then I was extremely blessed that I went to this other school, and I was very lucky that I was taught philosophy one-on-one. And I remember when I went there, the lady said to me, okay, well, what would you like to choose? And she gave me a list of subjects. And I went through them all, and I saw this word philosophy, which wasn't taught at any of the schools I've been kicked out of. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And that completely changed my life. And I think for me, the pursuit, the way that I see philosophy is the pursuit of how should I live? How can I flourish? How can I live the best life possible? And after I, lost everything, had my universe turned upside down, being taught philosophy one-on-one, and I was also quite heavily into the use of marijuana at the time as well, which kind of helped everything. Really opened my mind, as it were, to questioning, who am I? How can I live the good life? What does that even mean? And so actually, one of the reasons why I say, when somebody asks me, what do you do? I think at the essence, really, I'm a philosopher who just happens to do coaching, because it's a natural byproduct of my self-actualization quest to live the good life, as it were. And on that journey, I've been confronted with a lot of mindset challenges, let's put it that way. Goodness me. Did that answer your question?
It does. And it's interesting because we have a similar story, especially when, I didn't go into philosophy. I wasn't kicked out of school, but for me, it was like, what I see in you is like, you've been living life a certain way in a certain paradigm, and all of a sudden that paradigm is broken. You're being kicked out of it. That reality is no longer the way that you're used to it. And then you start something very important, which is you start questioning yourself. Who am I? And this is, I think, one of the most fundamental questions that humanity has asked. Who am I? And I'm wondering, when you first started asking yourself that question, what was that like for you? Did you go to straight away, wow, I can be whoever I want to be. This is amazing. I'm free. I can choose to be this and that, or was there a certain journey that led you to that path?
It's a great question. I remember the first lesson we ever had was Plato's analogy of the cave, which the essence of that analogy from Plato is it's an analogy which is describing the philosopher's journey to enlightenment, as it were. And it's kind of like it's almost like it's this archetypical story that we see in certain narratives, like for example Neo in the Matrix. I'm plugged in to the Matrix, as it were, and then I take the red pill and I see truth for what it is. And so for me, it was really that it awoke something in me that really excited me. I was like, wow, maybe, what does it mean to be enlightened? So I think for me, actually, my initial thing was, what is enlightenment? What does that mean? And it triggered something in me. It wasn't necessarily who am I? It was more, what is all of this? What is all this? And questioning everything. Like I said, questioning everything. I was fumbling around. I probably wasn't that black and white, but it started this process of, well, why do I need to go to university? Why do I need to have a 9-to-5 job? Why do I need to do this? Why do I need to follow everybody? And I think I'd always been, a bit of a maverick, to some degree, maybe less of a maverick, more of a rebel, should we say, to some degree. So I think it fitted in quite nicely to my rebellious nature. I didn't really see myself fitting into the mainstream kind of pathway, as it were. And I think that philosophy, suddenly Plato gave me permission to be radical. I should put that as my bio. Plato gave me permission to be radical. Thanks very much.
I think what you're saying is so crucially important, especially to the time that we find ourselves in right now. Plato's cave, the metaphor here is that we're not living life as it is, we're living life as it's being projected onto a screen, right? And if you look at nowadays society, it's all about looking at the news, and then we're living life through the lens of what should I do? What should I think? And this has been so revealing to me when I was on that journey, because just like you, I asked myself, why the fuck should I, get married now? Why should I get a job? Why this? Why that? And it brought up a lot of challenges, especially in my own family, because I was the only one who would go up against the status quo. And people would always say, why do you have to question everything? And I said, why the hell not? That's the whole nature of asking questions. It's about questioning. And did you encounter any of those challenges when you started asking those bigger questions and people were like, hey, William, calm down, stay in your line. What are you doing?
Thank you. So I didn't know my parents. My parents are quite hands-off, but in a very loving way. And I'm very grateful. I sent my mother a voice note on Mother's Day this year. I said to her, please don't take what I'm about to say the wrong way. Know that it's coming from a real place of love. And I really mean this. And I said, I'm so grateful for you. You fucked me up the perfect amount. And I really mean it. I really mean it. Just enough to not fit it, to not have it so easy that I wasn't always on my edge, and that edge which allowed to grow, and also that fucked upness, shall we say, that made me want to heal something in me. It was almost this perfect concoction of pain and pleasure. And and she cried, and somebody said, I cried listening to this, and I was like, oh, and she goes, in a good way, thank you. I lost train of thought, excuse me. So my parents are very hands-off. Do you know what, actually, I didn't find any resistance. I was very lucky, but I was taught philosophy one-on-one. So I just had this most amazingly encouraging, teacher. And so we could just go off on tangents. And so she really just like, hey, let's just fucking explore. And so it was really encouraged. And I was living with my mother for a bit of that. And then I moved away and lived by myself. But my mother's always been very encouraging about having, philosophical kind of conversations. And actually, it's funny when you said that, I was like, was there any challenge to this? Not really. Although I think sometimes friends of mine were just kind of like not really up for questioning everything, actually, and kind of like, oh, all right, let's just get on with things. And I think that used to, and it's interesting, I think of one of my friends now, we went traveling to India together around this time, and I would always, talk about stuff. And he would also be like chatting shit. And it's interesting, actually, now he and I have such interesting conversations, and he's a meditation teacher. So yeah, no, is the short answer to that is no, actually. No, I didn't have any. I was very, very grateful that I've always been allowed to just do my own thing, for better or for worse.
And I think there's not one path, like some people think that they have to have this dramatically traumatizing or challenging upbringing in order to have something valuable to bring to the world and for people to recognize them. And I think that's not true. And I'm wondering, you talk about philosophy, right? Is there a certain school of thought in philosophy that really helped you to navigate this time of uncertainty as you were exploring new possibilities, new ways of operating, new ways of showing up in your life?
It's a great question. Short answer is no. I think for me, the value for me with philosophy was finding something that was academic that I could really grab onto. You know, I used to fall asleep listening to philosophy podcasts. It was more I found this passion that you know, at school, I was kicked out of school for not being clever enough, just to give you an idea. So for me, I found something that was academic, or you know, that was taught at school that I friggin' loved and that I was really encouraged about. So there wasn't necessarily, I was just thirsty for it all. And when you said that, one thing really sticks out, which is Aristotle and Aristotle's virtue ethics. And so which is essentially all about character development. And and how he is saying that that really, in order to flourish, and I love that word, and I use that word because of him, actually, in order to flourish, another way, in order to self-actualize, in order to be your best possible version of yourself, he says that it's all about developing your character. And that was a really foundational way of thinking about personal growth for me. So actually, philosophy, my interest in philosophy, and I would say probably from Plato and Aristotle, then transmuted into, or should we say evolved into, personal growth specifically. And I would say that Plato, hey, you can become enlightened. And for me, you know, what is enlightenment, self-actualization? What does this even mean? And then Aristotle is about developing your character. That was my channel for sure.
So I like this. And talking about developing your character. Now, when you say that, to me, what comes up is personal development. What do you find has really helped you in developing your own character?
Thank you. It's a great question. I think really for me, expanding my comfort zone, I guess, is the broad answer I can give.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it comes down to, actually, is expanding my comfort zone. And within that is looking at fear, feeling it, sometimes crying, sometimes wetting yourself, very often making a lot of mistakes, but taking either giant leaps or baby steps into that fear and into the unknown. However that might look like. You know, I mean, like, one example that just came to my mind was, you know, I used to be so insecure and shy. I'm still insecure and I still can be shy, but I was even more deeply so, for sure. And my dear Lord, so insecure, and especially in public speaking. And I remember when I moved to Bali in 2019, I was working with the coach, and she said to me, "You should do a Facebook Live." And I was like, "Yeah, easy." I used to send my friends vlog videos on WhatsApp all the time. I thought they were quite good. And so, yeah, I'll go live, and just went live, and I froze. Suddenly I started seeing all these people joining, and I actually froze live. And I hung up in shame and deleted it. And my girlfriend was at the time watching. I was mortified. And then my coach, who was watching, called me up, or I called her up, and I said, "I fucking froze live." And she goes, "I saw." And she said, "You know what you have to do now, don't you, William?" I said, "What?" She says, "You need to go live again and talk about what just happened." And I've got to tell you, to this day, that's the most scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, wow, I've never in my life made myself so exposed and vulnerable. And I think that's where a big, there's such a key in that. There's such a key in that expansion of your comfort zone and facing your fears. And it reminds me of that quote by Joseph Campbell, where he says, "The treasure you seek resides in the cave you most fear to enter," is me paraphrasing him.
Yeah.
My goodness, isn't that true?
Yeah. So true. So true. And I want to acknowledge you for being so transparent, because from just the way that I perceive you here, I would never say that you come across as insecure as a public speaker. Like, no way. That wasn't even a thought in my mind. And I totally resonate with you sharing this example of shame, of freezing, and what it brings up, and how it closes us down, and how these emotions really are what's holding us back. People often think, you going back to the beginning of the conversation, you said 80% mindset, 20% strategy, and I agree. And you could probably even find that it's even more mindset. And people yet keep looking at what's the best way, how do I do it, what's the strategy, tell me the steps. And I'm wondering, when you are in that comfort zone, that place of comfort zone, there's a lot of thought around how to move out of your comfort zone. And I have my own thoughts about that. And I'm wondering, what is it that you find did help you? Because you just had this experience where you are deeply ashamed. You're like, delete, never again. Oh my God. And then you decide, I'll show up again. What is it that made you do that?
I think two things. I think I really trusted the mentor that I was working with at the time. I really trusted that if she said it's going to be okay, that it was. That's the first thing. And dovetailed within that, I knew she was right. I knew she was right. And so it was just a fuck, okay, kind of moment. And I think, look, I think that if she hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have done that. I probably wouldn't even, the idea wouldn't even have occurred to me. So actually, I had to give a lot of the credit to the fact that I had somebody there, and I think, sometimes that can be half the value of having a coach in your life. Actually, is just having someone, especially entrepreneurs. I think you work with entrepreneurs as well as I do. You're an entrepreneur, you run your CEO, you're just by yourself. And I think that, just having someone there being like, it's going to be okay, that you trust and respect, can make all the difference. And let's face it, like, if she wasn't there, the idea wouldn't have occurred to me. I wouldn't have done it. And at the same time, I knew that it was the right thing to do. I mean, look, when I hung up that Facebook Live, I deleted Facebook off my phone in shame.
Wow.
Actually, that isn't quite true. I was definitely in the wrong relationship, and I actually felt euphoric, and I felt really fucking good. Excuse me, that's not what happened. I missed out a very crucial piece. And I walked down the stairs, and I said to my girlfriend at the time, I was like, yes, I did it. And she goes, I watched. The lighting was so shit. And I was like, no. And actually, that comment that she made me feel so insecure.
Wow.
Then I deleted Facebook in shame. I was in a toxic relationship, so there we are.
Wow.
There we are. Anyway, did I answer your question? I went on a bit of a tangent there.
It did. You did. And that brings up a very important point, because what you bring forward is something that you both and I stand for, which is the power of coaching. And really what it comes down to is the power of your relationships. And especially if you are someone that is an entrepreneur, which by default often makes you a pioneer in your own regards, because many entrepreneurs that I encounter are often first generation entrepreneurs. Their parents are not entrepreneurs, or they're doing something that if you're doing something that you've never done before, you by default are a pioneer in your own world. So you are also going against the status quo that you have been bred to believe in, bringing back Plato's cave, for your entire life. So talk to me about the importance of having the right people in your life if you are someone that wants to move outside of your comfort zone, that wants to make an impact in the world, that wants to create wealth, abundance, freedom.
Thank you so much. I don't necessarily know if there's a general principle, because I think maybe everyone has a different card to play, but I certainly know from my experience, for sure, having people in my life that are encouraging and that see me, is a game changer for sure. And when I look at when I was kicked out of school, for example, and really at an age where you're 16, kicked out of school, huge universal shift. I could have really gone off rails. I was already off rails, and actually I went off rails. And in order for me to come back, I needed something very significant. And what that was 3 women in my life that gave me so much unconditional love and encouragement that it got me back on track. And that's invaluable. I actually remember seeing a billboard of Oprah Winfrey in England years ago, and she said something to the effect of, "Never underestimate the power of encouraging other people." It was far more profound than that. And I think that is huge, absolutely huge. And I think that the older I get, I'm very much a natural people pleaser, and naturally an overgiver, shall we say, of my boundaries and my time and my energy, for sure. And an ever-growing process for me is to get more fine-tuned and refined of how much energy and time I give people and who I allow in and don't allow in. And that's probably a lifelong thing, and I'm at the best I've ever got to it, certainly. And I haven't necessarily developed a philosophy around it, but my goodness, I mean, it goes back to that thing. I remember sitting down with 2 entrepreneur friends of mine, and I asked them this question, which was, if you could choose one personal growth principle out of all the ones that and only one, but you could embody it in its totality, what would that principle be? And mine was to fully realize and embody the fact that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Tony Robbins puts it as proximity is power. And I think that there's more than that. It's not just you will take on the collective skills, mindsets, attributes, and behaviors of your closest associations, but also I think, which isn't necessarily included within that description, is encouragement, is spending time with people that see your greatness and refuse to allow you, A, to not embody it, and B, not fucking see it, is huge. It's so huge. And the essence of that is someone that's really encouraging and really sees you. And it's interesting. I think that as coaches, we all have our own superpowers. You look at someone like Rich Lipton, who's one of the greats. His superpower, a friend of mine just had a consultation with him recently, and she actually goes, his superpower, he's a co-author of Prosperous Coach, and she said his superpower is he just slows you down, and that's his power. And her superpower is seeing patterns in people. I think what I've been mirrored back to me for the past decade, probably, and so I would suggest it's probably my superpower, as it were, is seeing the divinity in people and shining it back on them, which is something I opened up with, and therefore I kind of have an easy job, because it's easy for me to see that. It's easy for me to be like, look how fucking amazing you are. And interestingly, and this is the reason why I said maybe this isn't the medicine for everybody, I think that whatever your superpower is, whatever your medicine is, whatever you give, is also what your soul, whether you're aware of it or not, is craving as well. And so, if I were to have a look at my love language is words of affirmation. And when I found that out, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I told this to my girlfriend. I was like, oh, words of affirmation, words of affirmation. Kept reminding her a little bit. But it's so true. For me, honestly, it's incredible. And then the opposite, like if somebody does the opposite of affirming.
Before we continue the conversation with my inspiring guest, I have a very special announcement to make. If you're a business owner, I have a feeling you started this journey because you want more than just success. You want to live a truly abundant life. That means having a profitable business to fund the lifestyle you love and create a massive positive impact. It also means having thriving relationships with people who inspire and challenge you. Being mentally, emotionally, and physically healthy so you can have the energy to go after what you really want while truly enjoying the process. And being able to go on adventures that really make life worth living rather than just sitting behind your computer all day. So if you would like to be able to have this kind of abundance in your life, then I've just got the right thing for you. The Abundance Accelerator Academy is my new membership community where we host 3 monthly coaching calls that are focused on helping you improve your mindset, grow your business, and create the kind of freedom you want. There are also fun monthly community growth challenges that help you build new success habits, which you will need to access greater levels of abundance. All of this and more for just $69 per month. If this sounds exciting to you, visit www.abundanceupgrade4.me to learn more. And now, back to the show with my inspiring guest. You were saying the opposite off, and then it started.
So thank you. So I think so the essence is, I think, my medicine is seeing the greatness in somebody and reflecting it back to them. And I think that's also the medicine that I need to receive, is the reason why I give it. And so words affirmation is my love language. I think I got to there. And so for me, I mean, I lost my train of thought here slightly, but I can't remember where I was going, but that was the essence of what I was saying.
Yeah,
I think I had something else to say.
Yeah, we were just talking about relationships, and then the circle proximity is power.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think for me, spending time with people that see you, hold you accountable to what they see of you as well. It's one thing seeing it; it's another thing. It's another thing. It's holding somebody to that standard. And so I think that's very, very much important, as well as spending time with people that are also on a self-actualization journey. I think that's really, really important. And I think, there we are. And I think for me, not only is words affirmation kind of my love language, as it were, and so therefore, encouragement actually can be one of the great things I look for in a coach, for example, and support. On the flip side, because I'm quite sensitive, having someone say something bad about me can affect me sometimes, depending. And so I think a lot of my work is around, first of all, giving that affirmation to myself and not needing it externally, and also being able to have boundaries around what I do and do not allow to affect me. And I think underneath all of that, and it goes back to this idea of expanding one's comfort zone, is fear, and the absence of fear. Fundamentally, that's really what it is. And so for me, there's a poem by Marianne Williamson called Our Greatest Fear, which you may have come across. And I think for me, that's just like, that's for anyone that considered themselves, a warrior of light, a light worker, or wanting to do good in the world. I think that poem was written for all of us, myself included. And the essence of it is, stop letting fear get in the way of you shining brightly. And I think fundamentally, you could, from one perspective, that is the essence of personal development, is liberating oneself of those fears. And I think actually oftentimes the only way one can do that is by facing them, and going into that cave, so you can receive that treasure.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question, because you just brought up Marianne Williamson and her poem, and I think it's something like, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful. Something like beyond measure. Exactly. Thank you. And it's such a revealing way of looking at ourselves. And can you talk about this fear of success? Why is it that people are afraid of their greatest light?
Thank you. It's interesting, because it's almost like there's a fear of failure, and there's a fear of success, isn't there? And I wonder, for me in my own life, if mine's the fear of failure. I wonder whether that's mine. I wonder. I don't necessarily know if I'm afraid of success, and I don't necessarily know if I'm equipped to speak about it. Maybe they're two sides of the exact same coin. I don't know. I think some people, here we are. So I think some people, maybe their fear of success, it's just me kind of like spitballing here a little bit, is maybe because they don't want, and this is something she says in her poem. She says, there is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people don't feel insecure around you.
That's it.
As you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As you are liberated from your own fear, da 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 da. And so I think that's probably what it is. You know, I think some people maybe through their own conditioning of their own lives don't want to outshine anybody else. And I think that her message there, quite obviously, was, well, actually, no, you're fucking inspiring by shining bright. And so maybe that's the key. What do you think?
I think you made a very good point, and what it brings up for me is actually something. It's a story that I experienced back in Tulum at the beginning of this year when I worked with a coach who does somatic work. So for those of you that don't know, that somatic means working on the body. There was a lot of movement in the body, and there were stuck emotions there coming up. And I was doing breath work, and then all of a sudden I had this flood of sadness come up. And I started sobbing and crying. And I had been sitting with something for the week before. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is going to come up. I need to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, something completely different came up. And what came up was a vision that sparked into my mind where I was like, okay, I'm becoming more and more successful. I'm becoming more and more influential. And all of a sudden, I was afraid of losing connection with some people in my life. And I was like, oh, wow. It's like it's becoming more and more difficult for me to relate to them. And it's becoming more difficult for them to relate to me. And for me, that was a fear of a loss of connection, of a loss of intimacy. And that's based in an egoic belief, right? It's like the more successful I become, the more disconnected I become from certain people. To me, it's now what I'm realizing is, to me, success is to become more enlightened, more peaceful, more loving. And so the more loving and peaceful I become, the easier it is for me to relate to other people, because I can accept whatever they're going through with. Yet I recognized it's that fear of the loss of connection for me. It wasn't that I feared failing at doing this. It was that I was like, the bigger I become, the more alone I become. That's the thing. It was loneliness was driving this conversation. And then now I remember saying this, reflecting, I was like, how do I feel? And at the time, I felt quite lonely because I was buried in my work. And, I'm sure you can relate to this. That's, it's a fine edge. This work is something that fulfills us. It gives us so much joy and passion. Yet, for me, it takes up 90% of my life. I'm in it. I'm like all in all the time. And so sometimes when I step out of it, I'm like, wait, who am I outside of this? Who is Mario outside of the speaker, the coach, the transformer, all of that? And sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I feel quite lonely. And so it was that came up for me. And I recognized that I wanted to make more of a priority to have intimacy in my life with people, not for what I do, but for who I am.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's interesting. I think for me, because I moved around, went to boarding school, I chopped and changed. I moved around a lot when I was younger in terms of school, etc. I think I've become quite used to having friends and then moving on to find other friends. So I don't necessarily have that that sense. So interesting how just everyone's paths has different little nuances that yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have another question, because early on you said something, you talked about being seen and seeing someone, and I think I understand what you mean by that. Yet I can imagine some people don't quite get what that really means. So I'm wondering, in your perspective, what does it mean to really see another human being? And what does that do for the other person?
Thank you. I think it comes down to that, I can't remember who I was texting the other day. I think I was talking to somebody, there's a client of mine. And what I said to him was, you have to remember that everybody is playing small. And I fundamentally believe that we're all playing small. We may not be playing small in business, but we might be playing small in our relationships or whatever it might be. There's somewhere in our life where we are playing small. And I think that we can always be expanding. and always reaching a deeper sense of fulfillment. And Tony Robbins put it really beautifully. He said the art of fulfillment is two things. It's number one, self-actualizing and constantly growing as a human being, expanding your comfort zone, etc. And simultaneously increasing the level of impact and service you're making in the world. And he says that if you're doing both of those, your fulfillment level, sure, your life is going to be a roller coaster, but your fulfillment level is going to keep on and rising. And I really like that. And so actually, I think there is some sort of truth, and we are all playing small. We can all be greater versions of ourselves, and at least it's a bias of mine. And so I think for me, really what it comes down to in seeing somebody is maybe seeing potential, and sometimes potential has already been accessed. It's just not being embodied or realized. It's there. It's already there. You already have it. It's right there. You have it. You own it. You're just not using it. Why? Wake the fuck up. I swear at people a lot.
I like that.
I swear at people a lot. I swear at people a lot. And it was interesting. What a friend of mine, great coach. I was going through a moment of confusion, actually, over the past 7 days. And she said to me, she's so good. She's one of those people, just fucking, she sees things in me. She was like, she just said, look where you're playing small, motherfucker. And I was like, touche. Thank you very much. And I think I'm so grateful to have someone like her in my life to show me that. So yeah, to summarize, I think we're all playing small to some degree, and I think we can all be making a bigger impact in the world, and we have a really short amount of time, and I know I'm playing small for sure. I know I am.
Beautiful response. To see someone is to see their potential, and is to see they're already the dormant potential that's already there, and it relates to something that I've experienced recently with someone who's close to me as well, and I felt triggered, and because my story was, this person is not doing the inner work, this person is just projecting all of their unhealed wounds to the outside world, and I knew that it was coming from me. The trigger is me. It's my responsibility. It has nothing to do with the other person. And yet I was in a little bit of a twist. I was like, okay, I'm focusing on accepting this other person. I'm not in the position to say you need to change something about you. I want to focus on looking at her through the eyes of she is perfect the way she is. And then I'm listening to a lot of lectures on Christ consciousness. I'm not a religious person. I consider myself a spiritual being with a human experience. And the person that I was speaking was saying, if you're getting triggered by the other person, you are not looking at the person through the eyes of God, because in the eyes of God, this person is perfect. And I was like, damn. I was like, okay. So what I did was, in my mind's eye, I visualized, I just said, I demand peace for you. I demand peace for you. And I just looked at this person in this peaceful aura. And it was amazing, because the next time I saw the person, I felt completely different. I was so much more relaxed. I wasn't so on edge. It's like, something is going to come. I was like, no, peace. I demand peace. And it was amazing. And then that just reminds me of what you just shared in terms of looking at people through the eyes of what's possible. How are you already amazing? And, the things that are in the way, they're not real anyways. So I really appreciate that perspective. And I want to ask you another question. We talked about relationships and the importance of having sort of cheerleaders in your life, people that see you, encourage you. If you could spend an hour of your time with any person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It's a really good question. Jesus, that was easy.
Why?
Because if I could choose to spend time with anybody, why not God? I mean, that's going to be my answer now. If I were to sit about it, maybe I'd think of something a little bit cleverer than that. I don't know. But actually, yeah, I mean, look, let's say Jesus is a real human being. Okay, let's just say that. Let's say that he actually is the Son of God. Maybe we all are, you know. I would love, okay, here we are. If Jesus was alive, I would love to sit him down and speak to him and ask him a ton of questions. There's multiple reasons. If he was the Son of God, and he had obtained Christ consciousness, let's say, so he was a pure embodiment of unconditional love. Imagine being in the presence of that. You know, I think to myself that really, at the end of the day, everything comes and goes. Everything is there's only one absolute. I choose to believe there's one absolute, and that's unconditional love in its purest sense. And I think that the pursuit of that is the highest form of being in the world. You know, if you pursue to embody and to pursue having that as the filter of how you see and act and do everything, sure, that's going to be the highest pursuit. Sure, it has to be the highest pursuit. Whether it's attainable or not, it probably isn't. But pursuing it, I think, is the highest pursuit that I can think of. And so why not spend time with somebody that is the embodiment of that? And imagine, first of all, just melting in that type of presence. And also imagine just the upgrading of being in that kind of frequency. You know, I got really into the Hare Krishnas for a long time, and they're on the path, you know, very often I used to do the same. You kind of look at Hare Krishnas and you see shaved heads and tambourines and dancing like these are not normal people. And they're not. They're not. They're wonderful. They're very to the material eye, very unsexy. You think about in terms of like a lot of people getting into, you know, Eastern philosophies and Eastern spirituality, you know, having mala beads and doing yoga and kind of being sexy and maybe getting to tantra sex is quite a sexy form of spirituality. The Hare Krishnas are like, no, we're going to renounce the material world and we're going to be servants. It's not sexy. But my experience was meeting the right Hare Krishna monks, but their philosophy is without question the best that I've come across. Their spiritual philosophy is without question the best. And sure, there's certain, you know, like their own version of Hindu stories, etc., which you can take or leave. But the essence underneath them, they proclaim, and I agree, is the essence of every single last religion. And I think that for me, after being on my self-actualization journey, I found this a lot with my friends as well. It suddenly starts to become a spiritual quest, actually. And for me, theirs is the best. It's almost like the pure code of spirituality they have distilled, and it's fucking delicious. And really, essentially, what it is it's all about unconditional love. It's about being a servant of unconditional love, and that means also self-love. You know, you have to love yourself to be able to do that, and pursuing that. And this movement has spent, you know, 10,000 years, whatever it might be, really refining this, and there's so much advancement in their practice, which is mind-blowing. And I think that if I were to spend time with Jesus, let's say he is like the embodiment of a bhakti yogi or the embodiment of unconditional love, spending time with his essence would be amazing. You know, one of the Hare Krishna Swamis that I had the fortune of spending time with, called Radhanath Swami, he is the closest I've ever experienced to that in human form. He's certainly going to be considered a saint by the Hare Krishnas when he passes away. And you get upgraded being his company. It's quite something. And it's, you know, I remember seeing him in LA and being lost for words. I can't quite describe it. So I think spending time with Jesus in that respect would be good. And let's say that he wasn't the embodiment. He was just some like great philosopher. Well, we'd have a great chat in that case.
I like that answer. I like it very much so. And I can relate to a lot of things that you said. And I'm wondering, so I have my own perspective on this, and I want to hear yours on what does it do for someone, say you're a solopreneur, you know, you similar to us, you know, you might be digital nomad, you travel around and you're taking care of your own business. And you are focused on growing the business, more clients, more money, bigger impact, maybe less time working while the business keeps growing. And then you hear some dudes like you and I talk about unconditional love and Christ consciousness in the most practical sense. Why should someone care?
Why should somebody care about what? Sorry.
Embodying
Christ consciousness.
crisis consciousness. What does that do for them, on their journey in
Thank you.
the entrepreneurship realm?
Thank you. Well, I can actually I can give you an answer on this. Here we are. I can give you from multiple angles. So if we're spiritual and we say, well, so if we're a Hare Krishna, for example, and we're spiritual, we're going to say, be a servant of love, because when you do all of your actions in alignment of being a servant of love or God or the universe, then those are purified actions, and therefore you're going to burn your karma, and it's the fast track to enlightenment, should we say, and what is enlightenment? Maybe the ceasing of eternal birth and death and rebirth, maybe, and that's the samsara that Buddha talks about. So that's kind of the spiritual angle. If we were to have a look in terms of business, one of my favorite sales trainers, Zig Ziglar, put it so well. He said, you can have everything you want in this life if you'll just help enough people get what they want. And that is fucking magic. And it's fucking true. It's fucking true.
It is.
It really is. And, I've been studying this book. It's called Reality Transfer by somebody called Vladimir Zealand. And I'm considering even starting a podcast just to explore this, because it's a big bastard, and it's really interesting. It's really shaped the way that I think. And what he's saying in terms of manifesting, it's very much distilling a lot of esoteric philosophy. And he is saying that, I won't get into it, but the essence of what he's saying is, in order for you to create what you want to create, you still need to focus on somebody else's desires. It's in the process of helping other people achieve that you were able to receive, essentially. And that's a really watered down version of what he's saying. But the codes are there from different perspectives. There's a really, I think a lot of my entrepreneurial clients, I will send a video from Jeff Bezos. And if you were to type in 1999 interview Jeff Bezos, it's about 5 minutes long. It's amazing. This is before he's become the richest man in the world, right? And this interview is really trying to tear him apart, saying, really, you're an online business and da-da-da-da-da. And he keeps, and we have the luxury of knowing he's now the richest man in the world to kind of be like, yeah, you fucking legend, you stood your ground. And essentially what he's saying is, the reason why we're probably going to win is because we are obsessed with a customer service. We are obsessed with giving the end user the best possible end result. And another angle we can look at this is from sales. If we have a look at sales training, this is a really good one. I learned this from I'm not going to claim this as mine, but I'm certainly going to be sharing this with the world. From Alex Hormozi, great entrepreneur. And so if you're an entrepreneur watching this, check out Alex Hormozi. It's incredible. Acquisition.com. It's amazing. His YouTube channel, Alex Hormozi, just so good. So much value. And one of the things that he was saying in terms of sales, is a really good point, which is basically all sales trainings are focused on the skill of selling, right? And he says that, look, if you were to measure the skill of selling from 0 to 10, it's from 0 to 10. But there's another metric we need in sales, which is conviction. Conviction in this product being fucking amazing for this person to use it. And he says, well, if the skill of selling is measured from 0 to 10, then conviction has to be measured from 0 to 100. So you can have zero skill in selling, but 90% conviction, 100% conviction. You're going to fucking sell it. You don't need sales skills. What you need is a great product. How many people have you sold to go and watch that film or to go to that restaurant? Because you're fucking convinced. And so really all of these things combined, and the reason why maybe pursuing your question, like Christ consciousness and unconditional love and da-da-da-da, because when you stop being a selfish motherfucker, you actually get what you want. and another way to say that is that when you focus your life on really actually caring. Okay, here's another angle. Gary Vaynerchuk wrote a book called Crushing It or Crush It, and it's a black covered book. I think it's got two, one's yellow, one's black. It's the black covered book, and there's a chapter in there, and it's great. I love this, which is the best marketing strategy in the world. You open up that chapter, it's one page and one word, and he just put care. actually care. That's the best marketing strategy in the world. And it all ties back into this idea of service. I heard Jay Shetty say something. So we can keep going. It's the essence. Jay Shetty on a podcast spoke about how we are hardwired to serve. And there's a really great experiment, which was they got 10 university students, and they go, here's $10, go and buy something, rate your happiness level. So they all went out and bought coffees and sandwiches, rate their happiness level 6 out of 10. Thanks very much, that was great. Next day, $10. Now this time, go and buy something, but give it away. They bought the same things, gave it away, but the happiness went through the roof. Why? Because we love giving. We love making people happy. And so as an entrepreneur, the essence of all of this, really the essence is providing the best. Jay Abraham calls this preeminence. I love it. It's providing the best possible service you can to your customer or clients. And if you can really, really try and serve them, actually serve them, you're going to get more referrals, you're going to make more money, you're going to feel great, and you're going to get everything that you need. It goes back to that quote, Zig Ziglar. You can have everything that you want in this life. It will just help other people get what they want.
Man, that is so, so true, and so valuable what you just shared. And it just brings this elusive, intangible way of looking at unconditional love into the practical realm. And to close up with a personal story there, I've made a life commitment out of this because I was living the opposite. I was living me. How can I create the best life for me? And it ended up leading me almost to ending my own life. I was miserable, depressed, in chronic back pain, ready to end my life. And then I understood this concept. It wasn't like I changed tomorrow, but it was a process that took me to, how can I become of greater service to the world? And today, my mission is to raise the consciousness of humanity and to empower the next generation of conscious millionaires. Why? Because I know that if there's more money in the hands of people like you and myself, the world is going to do a lot better. It's just inevitable, because people like you and I, we quickly fulfill our needs. So what do we do with the rest of the money? We give it away. We do good things. We help other people because we don't identify with the money. We want other people to thrive. And I love the way that you made it so practical, that shows people that there's no better marketing strategy than love. And love is transferred into caring. Make an impression, really serve people more powerfully than they're expecting it. And they're going to pass it on. They're going to sing your name. So I really love what you just shared. And I want to thank you for being on the show. I think there's a lot more that we could get into. We could probably chat for 10 hours. And I want to ask you,
sure we could.
is there a message that you have for the people listening to this podcast? Is there a parting message that you'd like to share?
Wow. Well, first of all, to say thank you very much for having me on here, and I really see you. And the parting message, part A, would be keep listening to this beautiful man. And I really see you. And I really see your authenticity. And true story. I'm not often asked to be on podcasts, and in the past, I think you asked about 6 weeks ago, and I put this about 6 weeks into the future.
Yes.
Just because I was doing some things around that time. I think 3 or 4 people asked me. You're the only person that I did it, and that's not because I'm inundated. It just happened to be this freak month where 4 people asked, all people that I respect. But I'm doing this for you because I don't know. There's something je ne sais quoi. But if I put it into words, because I feel you deeply. So I'd just like to acknowledge you first and foremost, and thank you very much for inviting me. I consider it an honor. So thank you. If I were to give a passing thing to your audience, what would that be? First thing that comes to my mind would be something that I'm still trying myself, and I think I had a coffee with a friend of mine this morning, and I was reminded by how important this is of a pursuit, which is to pursue authenticity. And I think and especially how this relates to mindset. This book that I'm reading at the moment, I've been studying for a long time, this manifestation book, or call it book of creation, or whatever it might be. So what he's saying is that, and it's interesting, in a textbook about manifestation, he doesn't talk about money. He talks about money once, and that's just to dismiss it. And what he's saying is that don't focus about money, don't focus about any of this kind of stuff. You need this is the key. The key is this: what do I need to be doing for life to feel like a holiday? Now, automatically, the mind might come in and go, well, that's unrealistic. There we are. This is the mind. And this is what it means to be limitless. We have all these limited conditionings of our mindset. But actually, why can't life be a holiday? Actually, why can't you really love what you're doing? Sure, okay, there's ups and downs. Sure, well, when you're on a holiday, the idea is that actually, well, why can't life be full of play and fun and pleasure and pursuing things that you genuinely love to do? And the mind gets in the way, and this whole book is really interesting. Look at this esoteric ideas of this mind. But anyway, but underneath that is essentially, happiness is to be found in pursuing authenticity. And there's philosopher Martin Heidegger put it really beautifully. Somebody once said it was a big part, should we say, of his philosophy, the limited amount of his philosophy that I'm aware of. But one thing that stood out was, I remember hearing in a talk once, somebody said to him, Professor, you keep saying that we need to be authentic and pursue an authentic life. How do we do that? And he says, spend more time in graveyards. When you realize that you don't have much time on this earth, you realize, live an authentic life. And I think there's something really beautiful in that. And as I was talking to my friend, he really inspired me because, it's almost like something clicked within him about a year ago, and he just decided to really do what he loved. He's a coach as well and a musician, and he's in such a high vibration that so much abundance and opportunity and pleasure and satisfaction is just coming to him like a magnet, because he is that authentic, vibrant expression. And it's almost like whenever you are not authentic and in that high vibration, to use that kind of language, you're dimmed. And when you're dimmed, you're not going to be attractive. And so I think the parting idea that I would leave is something that I'm still pursuing in my own life, is that pursuit of living an authentic life and noticing when the mind comes up. And I think the very often where the mind comes up is, do you know what? I'll go and make a ton of money, then I'll do that.
Exactly.
and that's the biggest trap. That's the biggest trap.
Yeah.
And that's certainly been a trap in my own life. That's my 2 pennies worth. I hope that was useful.
That very, very, very much. And I think I sign right away. Being authentic is really the magic of being you. And when you're no longer filtering who you are and what's coming up for you, then you're also no longer blocking what you can receive. And so everyone, go check out William Griffin. As you have heard today, he's a master. He's a genius in helping other people shine even brighter. William, what's the best way that people can connect with you?
It's very kind of you to say that. Thank you very much. Instagram is really the only way I'm at. Instagram, William __ Griffin. Somebody took William Griffin and William _ Griffin, so I've got the double underscore. So hopefully you'll find me that way.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to add that into the show notes. Lovely. So everyone, make sure to check him out. Thank you so much for tuning into the Self-Doubt Solution. This is your host, Mario Lanzarotti, wishing you a beautiful rest of your day and looking forward to having you back on the next episode.